I don't see most of the comments on my videos. I usually only look at the top-rated comments on the first day of an upload, but not much after that. Some people try to talk to me that way, but I don't always know about it because YouTube no longer provides notifications. So there's no way for me to know when or if you've posted a challenge or question or what have you to whichever video that maybe I would have liked to reply to had I known about it. That also means that if you say something that is actually worthy of response, then you'll never get notified if I post a reply to you. So we can't have discussions in YouTube comments anymore. I get notifications on Facebook. If you want to discuss something with me, find me there. And most of the comments challenges that I get are frankly idiotic trolls, acting stupid just to waste my time. And I'm sure that the featured imbecile of the day is no exception. Whenever I'm arguing with creationists, I have to wonder, what is the problem with our communication? Are they really that stupid, or are they being dishonest? And usually I find that it's both. Even sincere believers have been culturally conditioned to duck and dodge and deceive in defense of their faith, with justifications from the patriarchs that it's okay to lie as long as you're lying for Jesus. I try to help them understand what should be the obvious problems with that. Sometimes the stupid things they say reveal a common misunderstanding that I think should be addressed and corrected anyway, if not to help that one person, then for the benefit of anyone else looking on, who should know better, but maybe won't if I don't explain it. And since I've heard some of these misunderstandings repeated so many times, then why try to reply to that one person when they may never see it and probably wouldn't read it or understand it even if they did read it? So better to post it to all of you. For example, on my recent interview with theoretical physicist Sean Carroll, one of my critics said, "You're watching a man with no hope, no future, and does not want anyone else to have one either." That is not correct. My hope, the hope that I really do have, and my motivation behind my channel, is that we can awaken enough religious minds that they may return to the default setting of thinking rationally, such that we as a species might still have hope for the future. Because Christianity and Islam both are death cults, offering nothing but perpetual and even violent cultural oppression and hostility and even philosophical restraints until our imminent ultimate extinction, which they will hasten, after which they imagine that there will be some impossible promise of a posthumous paradise, but only for the pitiful few thoughtless minions of one particular isolated denomination. To hell with everyone else, literally. Now, that sort of bewildering inanity damns us all. It is my sincere opinion that religious faith is the worst and most dangerous thing humanity has ever invented. I also have to point out that what believers say they hope for would be horrific if it were real. Imagine spending all of eternity perpetually kissing the ass of an inexplicably insecure, indomitable despot, as if that was the purpose of your life. How could that give anyone a sense of meaning? Especially knowing that any being worthy of worship would not want to be worshipped. If there was a God who knows everything, then he already knows how great he is. He doesn't need you to tell him. And he's not so fragile that it would bother him if you didn't praise him. You could even criticize him, and he would understand why you did, but he wouldn't care because he knows better than you. The ultimate power in the universe literally would not give a damn about the uneducated opinions of insignificant ants like us. And a loving Father would be nothing like the God of the Bible. Instead, he would be there for us, talk with us, actually forgive us for things we really did, not over what or whether we did or didn't believe. Punishing someone for what they believe is indefensibly unjust, immoral. If you think the Bible is a moral guide full of family values, then I have to wonder whether you're ready to sell your daughter as a sex slave. The Bible allows this for even preteen prisoners of war. A loving Father would help us be better than anything the Bible says about God. Instead of commanding us to commit wars and torture and genocide in his name, he would intercede and stop the fight, helping us both to get along better in the future. The God of Abraham never behaves like a real father would. Remember that in the story of the Tower of Babel, God got angry when he realized how productive we can be when we work together. So he divided us against ourselves so that we would fail. That's what he wanted us to do. Fail. Oh, look, they're building something neat. Look what they could do. Nope, let's put an end to that. No loving father would ever do that to his progeny. And what is the point of heaven? My grandmother told me that we'd all have mansions on streets of gold. But why would we need shelter in what is supposed to be a paradise where there's no discomfort? Logical inconsistencies like this is why the promise of heaven doesn't sell. What is the point of perpetuity? We don't need it, and we're better off without it.
Do you want to live forever?
No, I don't, because eternity, under any conditions, will deteriorate into damnation eventually. There's just no way around that. You can postpone it, but you can't prevent it, and when it happens, it will be prolonged infinitely. Every description of heaven that believers have ever explained to me has been at least silly, unrealistic, and myopic, if not downright terrifying. They are God-fearing people, after all, so they think it great being trapped for the entirety of eternity, locked in a room with a vindictive, judgmental, indomitable despot who can read your mind. So you'd better be thinking nice thoughts about him, because he'll know. He does not tolerate independent thought. He is a manipulative, malignant, narcissist control freak who forces conformity and craves loyalty and reacts violently to inquiry or even a hint of insubordination, seemingly out of weakness. Almost as if it's not God who is insecure, but the clergy who are trying to sell a high-priced lie for which they have no evidence. But if we believe them, and why should we, then we are assured that in heaven there is no escape, ever, not even by suicide. The philosopher Bertrand Russell said that cruel men believe in a cruel God and use their belief to excuse their cruelty. Only kindly men believe in a kindly God, and they would be kindly in any case. Men tend to have the beliefs that suit their passions. Christopher Hitchens described heaven as a celestial North Korea, with the exception that at least you can die and leave North Korea. But from heaven, there is no way out. Think of it like moving back in with your parents, only it's just like it was when you were a little kid. Because they have total control over you, and you have no power over them nor rights of your own. Even though you're not a child anymore, you have to be treated like one. You have to put up with listening to their ignorance and bigotry forever and live by their restrictions forever. And you'd better keep quiet about it, or else Dad will bring the belt, or Mom will bring a switch. That's how it was in my house. I've heard heaven described many ways, all of them bad. So there is no appeal there, nor can there be, not for me. But believers say, oh, it won't be like that because you'll be different than you are now. You won't have desires or free will or independent thoughts anymore. You'll exist only to tell an already omniscient being how great he is all the time so that he doesn't get angry with you? No, thank you. I've already been in an abusive relationship. I'm not having that again, certainly not for eternity. So, how do I get out of that? What do I have to do to avoid eternity in heaven? Because I would literally rather just die. Because, there comes a time when you get tired, when you're done with it. When you get old, you don't fear death anymore. It's time. Just let me go to sleep. All the way, to the deepest sleep, like 6 feet deep. Let me die completely and forever. When it's my time and I'm ready to go, especially if I reach a point where every day I suffer physically and mentally, and even more so if the ones who once loved me also suffer emotionally and financially because of my diminished condition, then it's time to let all of that stop. Just let me die when I'm ready, like everything else dies. I don't need an afterlife, and I certainly don't want one. Oblivion would be so much better than perpetual persistence in any form. But you don't get that kind of dignity in heaven. Instead, we have the inevitable monotony of endless stagnation, where you're still doing the same thing again. Again? Not this again. Doesn't matter what it is. At some point you will have run out of books to read and things to know. You'll have done everything a million times over. You can't get better at it forever, and you don't want to do any of it anymore, but your sentence is still just as long as it was when you got bored of everything 5 billion years ago. And there will never be any way to just let it end. There is no point in still playing that same game forever and ever and ever. Stop it. Life is precious because it is short and there's nothing after it. If we lived for eternity, then our natural life is devalued. People tend to value most that which is rare, and what is more rare than these few decades that we really have? How much could you really value anything if there was an infinite amount of it everywhere? If you've only got finite funds to last you, you're going to spend it wisely, and you'll be more appreciative of whatever you can afford. But if you've got $11 jillion lying around all over the floor, all over the ground outside, wading knee-deep through $1-million bills as if they were autumn leaves every day, everywhere you go, then how would you really value anything anymore? What is anything worth at that point? I heard a Christian minister say that if he couldn't keep on living forever, then there was no point in living at all. That if what he does today doesn't still matter 5 billion years from now, then he thinks it doesn't matter now. He thinks that if he is not eternally immortal throughout all the eons of time, then there is no point in being in any moment. He said there was no reason to prolong life, nor to ease the suffering of another. Because if I can't have everything I want, then nothing and no one else matters. Let him cry. Let him die. Why should I care? His was the most morose and grotesquely selfish perspective that I've ever heard, which is just one of the myriad injustices that religion does to a human mind and philosophy, making you hate these years while you live. You'd better not enjoy these moments either, neither joys of food, nor flesh, nor of the arts, nor of learning, because enjoying any earthly pleasures, no matter what they are, whether it's dancing, partially naked, to the devil's music, or having a beer with your pork ribs, everything good is somehow bad according to some religion, because religious belief is perversity, and a perpetual paradise is the ultimate perversion and prison. So how do I avoid this damnation in heaven? It used to be that the only way to live forever was to believe that some particular first-century faith-healing fraud had the authority of divine nepotism. That if you bought into that one guy's dubious sales pitch and gave his death cult all your money, then you won't really die. Your body dies, and no Christian gets to avoid that, but believers say, without evidence and despite evidence to the contrary, that we supposedly have a ghost inside us that is us and will continue on somehow, but only if you believe in the magic powers of that one particular cult figure. So that if you don't believe in all of that, then you're already good. You don't have to worry about living forever. Just live, love, create, make most of the time you have left. And that's why the people who made up the fables in the Bible eventually invented hell, because heaven doesn't sell. If your choice is between death, absolute oblivion, where you don't even exist anymore, versus an endless eternity of any sort, and you think about that for a few minutes, you're going to choose death. So the Christians had to change the rules, such that now everybody lives forever, regardless whether you believe in Jesus or not. So now your soul either goes to heaven to serve some sovereign, or it goes to Sheol, the land of the dead, to be dead, unconscious, not even dreaming. Still better than heaven. So the death that you would have gotten automatically for free in the original Judaism, and which is still an option in early Christianity, you now have to pay for in the modern version of that religion. How do we do that? Well, back then they said that the wages of sin is death. Okay, so to avoid an eternal afterlife and get the rest in peace like I was initially promised, then I have to sin? Okay, how much sinning will I have to do to get my wage of death? What is sinning and how do you do it? How much is this going to cost me? But then it's even worse now, because now I have to be saved from salvation. Because now they're posing the empty threat of a fate worse than death for anyone or everyone who doesn't or can't make believe in whatever obvious nonsense the ignorant liars and the clergy are pushing. The authors of Christianity changed the rules, but it's too late now to edit out the old rules that are still in the book. We just have to accept that they no longer apply. So that now there is no way to die no matter what you do. The wages of sin are no longer death, like it still says. Instead, they changed it to a life sentence, where even heaven will inevitably become hell eventually. And for me, that would be upon arrival. So you're literally damned if you do, and damned if you don't. The idea of hell is inconsistent with God. The notion of it is so absurdly, extremely pointless and vindictive that I had to reject that belief when I was still a child, even though I still believed in Jesus and God and heaven for years after that. Because no supreme being, nor even a slightly superior being, would allow there to be a hell. Hell was obviously invented by the clergy to scare people into giving them money and power and time alone with their other people's children. The carrot wasn't selling the scam. They needed the stick too. And that is the real purpose and only reality of hell. So as an atheist, I have hope, not just for myself, but for humanity as a whole, if we can break our debilitating addiction to religion. However, this guy says I have no future, and I can't argue that. I'm 63 years old, so there's already that. But worse, I'm now forced to live without any form of health insurance. Just cross my fingers and hope nothing happens to me before Democrats take over again. Beyond that, I am perpetually impoverished by an economy devastated by a criminally corrupt incompetence, where my class of people are working longer, harder, and faster, but making less and paying more. My job makes it even worse, because I'm a secular science and social rights activist living in an authoritarian fascist regime that was once a free country, but where now there is a presidential task force that seeks to oppress and prosecute people like me.
Is there an atheist in the room? Any atheists? I don't think so. I wouldn't want to raise my hand if I were. I'd be in big trouble.
So yeah, I personally don't have much of a future anymore, not since the election last year. But at least I had a really good past. This guy went on to lament that 328,000 people follow me, as if that makes this a clown world. Yes, we live in a clown world. Elect a clown, expect a circus. Except that it's not funny. We live in a world where 39% of Americans support Donald Trump somehow, still, despite everything. Every embarrassing or horrible atrocity he causes every day, and every new crime we find out about, even though there are ever more of them and they keep getting worse, there are people who still follow him, even to their own demise. That same faction who support Trump also rejects science to make believe in creationism, and specifically Christian nationalism, which is usually also white nationalism. It's a Venn diagram that is merging into a circle, with the widening overlap of everything evil and stupid in the middle. This, I think, is probably due to the statistical correlation that the more educated someone is, the more they know, the less they believe, or the less likely they are to believe in the supernatural assertions. Plus the negative correlation that religious believers are statistically less intelligent than non-believers.
My name is Keegan, and I talk about the psychology of politics, and I guess religion for right now. A meta-analysis of 63 prior studies, including data from 137 countries and all 50 U.S. states. Religious people are less intelligent, and the theorized reasons as to why are: number 1, intelligent people are less conforming. Number 2, intelligent people tend to think more analytically, as opposed to more intuitive, gut-feeling style thinking. And the research shows that analytical thinking undermines religious belief. And number 3, this is the most interesting one: what religion provides is also provided by higher intelligence. For example, religion helps you cope with fear of death, fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, and fear of the chaos and randomness of the world. Intelligence also reduces these fears. Religion provides a blueprint on how to act and helps with self-discipline. Well, intelligence is also associated with self-regulation and self-control abilities. Religion can be self-enhancing, aka giving people a feeling of self-worth. Intelligence does this as well. Here's another interesting thing. The data clearly shows that intelligence matters more than education, with an effect size 3 times larger. By the way, how strong was the correlation between lower intelligence and religiosity? In order to nullify these results, there would have to be over 10,000 new studies showing zero correlation between intelligence and religiosity.
Knowing this, you might not be surprised to learn that while the religious extremists are all on the authoritarian right, the intellectuals of the world are not only predominantly secular, but they also lean left. I don't think this is innate, nor necessarily genetic, but it is true that authoritarian forced conformity appeals to religious people, and that religion has special appeal to stupid people, irrational people, because
when you learn how to speak to a person's conscience and circumnavigate the intellect, the subject of evolution seems to disappear.
young Earth creationist Kirk Cameron meant to say circumvent here, not circumnavigate. He's not starting from the intellect, then traveling all the way around it to come back to it. No. He's treating the intellect as an obstacle to credulous belief in unsupported assertions of impossible absurdity. The intellect is an obstacle to being completely fooled by indefensible nonsense without question, reservation, or reason. That he chose the wrong word there proves my point that religion is stupefying.
I'm occasionally asked what the biggest gripe is, my biggest beef is, with my former faith. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian home. I was a student leader, a spokesperson for Youth for Christ. I was a broadcaster for a successful Christian radio station in Tulsa, Oklahoma for 12 years. I was a true blue believer in Jesus Christ and really wasn't given a choice to be anything else, you know, and now I am an atheist, and people will say, well, what's your biggest beef with Christianity? Christianity made me talk like an idiot.
Of course, this is not to say that there are no smart Christians. I know of several who are in some areas utterly brilliant. Their religious beliefs are often said to be compartmentalized, held separate from their rational understanding of the real world, and more of an emotional perspective, not subjected to the same analytical scrutiny as everything else they might hold to be true. Because it's a personal attachment to an idea that many of them will readily admit is not intellectually nor rationally defensible. And so we just kind of leave them alone about that, and then they can go about their day and live regular lives. So they don't appear to be stupid that way, certainly. And this is not to say that there are no stupid atheists, because, oh boy, are there. How do you think it happens sometimes that an atheist converts to Christianity? It doesn't happen often, but when it does, don't ask them to explain why they did. You will be disappointed in their reasoning, because the reasons, if we can call them that they give, are always invariably so much worse than if they'd never questioned the faith they grew up with in the first place. But on balance, there is no balance. The smarter you are, the more educated you are, the more likely you are to be atheist, while the vast majority of stupid people, with relatively few exceptions, are overwhelmingly religious. I don't think you get smarter when you give up your faith. I think that the smarter you get, for whatever reason, be it biological or emotional development along with education, the more you learn, the more you question your own assumptions, and the more likely you are to realize that religion doesn't provide any actual truth, nothing whatsoever that we can show and thus know to be true. Instead, you're expected to blindly believe irrational idiots, fools, and liars who obviously don't know what they're talking about, ever. And this is when you are more likely to abandon faith as being invariably, inherently dishonest and auto-deceptive. If you want an accurate understanding of the way things really are, then you have to realize that faith is not a reliable path to truth, but it's a great way to stay wrong about everything forever and never even know it. That is how you break out of religion, not through intelligence, but through honesty. For some of us, the truth matters more than whatever we might rather believe, whereas for believers, their belief matters more than whatever the truth is. So if you're one of those for whom the truth really matters, then you don't want to be fooled into believing anything that is not evidently true nor even possible. Nor would you claim anything to be the truth until or unless you can show the truth of it, the evidence leading exclusively to that conclusion. This is where faith differs from reason. Faith is pretending to know things no one even can know, which of course is lying to yourself and others. And reason means understanding that if you can't show it, then you don't know it, and you shouldn't say that you do. Studies have shown that the more religious one is, the more likely they are to be both conservative and reactionary, expressing righteous indignation and moral outrage. They're more likely to support capital punishment and even the torture of prisoners. And likewise, the deeply religious are more likely to support corporal punishment of children. Rates of abuse, like homophobia, racism, and even child molestation, are especially high among the devoutly religious. I saw a study reporting that the more religious an offender is, the more heinous the crime against more and younger victims. You would think that it was going to make people, forgiving and good, but no, that is opposite correlation. And again, I'm not saying that all Christians are evil, nor that any atheist is necessarily good. But studies also show that people who grew up with religion, who became ministers or missionaries or seminary students, dedicating their lives to God, who then later began to question their position for whatever reason, find that when they finally discard their faith, then far from being lost like they used to think they would be, they instead find that they've become more tolerant, less judgmental. They're more curious. They typically go back to college, often pursuing the science they were denied in their youth. Thus, they become smarter. They enjoy life more now that they know there is no afterlife. They can live in the moment and appreciate it and savor the flavor of being. They're happier and literally better people overall. Even more moral. You don't realize how poisonous religion is while you're in it, just like you don't realize how bad smoking is while you're still addicted. But if you go a few months without a cigarette and then take a puff, then you'll recognize it as poison, finally realizing what you've been doing to yourself all those years, and what you've been doing to other people as well. There is no greater enemy of smoking than a former smoker, just like there's no greater enemy of religion than a former believer. That is my hope, and the reason behind this channel. It works, too. Even after decades of doing this, I still get messages almost every day from former believers thanking me for something I said or showed them that got them thinking or got them out of their poisonous delusion and led them into a better life. Just knowing that I've helped so many people like this over the years gives my life a sense of purpose and meaning and even hope. I don't expect this guy to understand that. He doesn't even understand how to spell your, not as a possessive of what is yours, but as a contraction of the words you are. But at least he has already admitted why he believes and says what he does, because he is incredibly stupid.